Hello and welcome to Module 6, where we will explore working with social media and communications. In this module, we will explore the rules of political engagement, identifying your audience, choosing engagement tactics, effective communications, digital access, and online safety. As we begin, it is important to remain informed and up to date on any political advertising and media guidelines in accordance with provincial and municipal election rules. You can find more information about this at elections.on.ca. When we think about social media, our first step is to begin by identifying our audiences. You can build a following by choosing accounts with similar interests to follow and starting with your current network. Many people elect to use multiple social media platforms and may start off by building their following on one and then bringing them over to another. For example, starting on Twitter and then promoting their Instagram, or another example, linking their Facebook and Instagram so that it's easier for people on one to follow them on the other. When considering which platforms to use, it's also good to think about what audience you want to engage with and how demographics play into which ones you use. Different platforms engage different people. Once you've built an audience, you can make use of social media analytics to tell you more about who they are. This can be helpful in determining who you are trying to communicate with the content that you create. Some things to think about are, what are they looking for? Do they come to your account for updates or for news, or just to engage with you, to ask you questions, so on and so forth? Based on the answers to these questions and others, you can better understand what content would suit each platform catering to your audience's interests. As we work on what content to create, we want to keep inclusivity and accessibility in mind. Many platforms have options for closed captions to be added or automated live captioning. It is important to note that automated captions may not always be accurate and also may not capture everyone's voice in the same way. As a result, they might not be helpful for everyone compared to more accurate subtitles or live interpretation. Using contrasting colors, large font, keeping emojis at the end of your sentences on Twitter or Instagram, using camel case, as well as descriptive and alternative text for images can all be helpful to ensure your content can reach your audiences. Continuing to examine how we access social media platforms, there are also things to keep in mind when we use it as an active engagement tool. We'll talk about this further on the next slide. Not all social media platforms allow for alternative methods of communication, so diversifying the way people connect with you is important. When possible, enabling phone-in and write-in options can increase your reach. Offering recordings, transcripts, and slide decks from places like Instagram Lives or Twitter Spaces. Another support can be creating the opportunity for people to ask or submit questions in advance and after social media events, and having technical support in place during these events for folks who may need help with digital literacy. Going back to engaging with your audiences, there are many tactics that can be used. Just like when identifying your audience, there are several questions to ask before starting. First, what are you trying to convey? For example, are you trying to increase the number of event attendees for a rally or a fundraiser or another live event? Are you sharing updates about a campaign or reflections and policy points around what's happening in your constituency? With these in mind, we can figure out what content and platform make the most sense depending on where your audience is. On the flip side, as a follower, engaging with this content from candidates can help you get a better sense of them and their teams, what's happening in the community, and if there are any constituency events. Posting is usually the main use of social media content, but making use of the different features on each platform can help better engage your followers. For instance, instead of just posting profile posts on Instagram, you can use stories, lives, and reels to share content differently. Or, instead of just posting tweets on Twitter, you can have a conversation with your followers and others using Twitter Spaces. Maximizing the use of features gives you more opportunities to connect with your audience. Lastly, and perhaps the most helpful part of social media, is building community with your following. Using features that offer the most personal interactions are likely the best for this, as they are the easiest to form connections with. Your audience can share questions, and you can offer clarity, engage in discussions, and hear real reactions. You can also amplify what others have posted by resharing content onto your accounts, following hashtags related to yourself or a campaign you're participating in, or following and bookmarking content that you can comment on and directly engage with when appropriate. The same is true for those looking to follow a campaign or a candidate. To practice some of what we've learned, we'll try a short 15-minute exercise in content creation. Based on your current social media presence, create 2 to 3 sample posts that incorporate what you've learned from this module. An example is ready on the next slide. Select your platform and determine who the audience you are catering to is. What is it that you're trying to convey to them? Through what tactics? And how can you make your post be as accessible as possible for your audience to engage with? Take some time to curate these posts. You can think about some that you've seen as examples online, things that have drawn your attention and how you might draw others, or focus on what you would want to see from those in power when looking to social media to learn. Try and be as specific as possible when thinking about what captions you want to use, how you can make them more accessible, and write them in as such. Make sure that your alternate texts and image descriptions are detailed enough that you could visualize what somebody is saying or seeing if they were not able to. Lastly, consider what your audience might think when reading through your posts. How will it make them feel? Will it make them want to engage more with you, to learn more about what you're sharing, or even convince them to follow you if they haven't already? This activity should take you about 15 minutes. As you move forward, it is important to remember that social media comes with its own set of safety risks, and that this is disproportionate for those from oppressed and repressed communities. It is highly recommended to take precautions when using online tools. Platforms have mechanisms that can be utilized to curtail harmful behavior, which can sometimes be helpful. It is also necessary to remain cautious when sharing live locations and geotagging. Some individuals at higher risk may even elect to create safety plans for doxing. It is necessary to keep all of this in mind when deciding when and how to use social media, whether it's as a candidate running a campaign or a constituent just trying to learn more, and even in your everyday use. Social media can be a powerful tool to get an audience to engage with your content while continuing to use these platforms to share their messages. And we want to make sure that everyone remains safe moving forward.